All right, so I think I was just gonna capture video of the game of me trying to get to level 8 or 9, but I'm kind of struggling. So I'd rather just chat about what I've been up to. So, you know, I, I have to sometimes consider what was this channel about. I started this channel, the Shimavox 3000 channel, because I used to have a channel devoted to just game development, and then I had another channel devoted to music. That was my Fuzzbucket band or Fuzzbucket NYC. I don't know. It's confusing because there's more than one Fuzzbucket band, so I don't really remember which channel it is. But we stopped playing as Fuzzbucket because my sort of bandmates, we were all just co-workers at an animation studio back when Blue Sky Studios existed. And I used to just play music with my coworkers, Eric and Jamie. And I primarily played drums and saxophone, even though I grew up playing guitar. And Eric mostly played guitar, and Jamie played, actually both of them played hybrid bass/guitar instruments, which is pretty interesting. Jamie and I had both bought these like 7 and 8 string guitar bass hybrid from Novex after we saw Charlie Hunter, and we had received like our bonus checks from Ice Age 2. And then I wound up giving my hybrid guitar to Eric, and he took it to LA. And Jamie also moved to San Francisco, and I'm back in New York. Just kind of doing whatever. So I left animation, got into game development, started my game dev channel, and but I don't know, I was always frustrated that I have multiple channels, and I'm also doing electronics, and I just wanted to make a channel devoted to creative work, or kind of like being a maker. So recently I was employed at Peloton, and I worked in the gaming team as a sort of like tech artist. My title was creative developer. So I worked really closely with the engineers, but I was officially in the art department. And I have a tendency to sort of split my time between really technical engineering type work and the art stuff. So when I worked at Blue Sky, I was a 3D modeler for a few years, and then I was a material shader developer for a few years. And then I also worked in the fur department, which was a little bit more kind of a combination. It was like procedural modeling and sort of materials based, kind of like node based networks that handled like the fur. Kind of think of it as like a vector field of like the hair direction. And we were writing plugins for Maya and proprietary plugins and stuff. Anyway, I left animation a while ago. Did some work. Did a lot of like gig work. Whether it was game engines or like 3D, more like VFX type stuff. And Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit, timeline is a little bit all over the place, but the last place I worked was Peloton, and we got, our whole team got laid off, and now we're kind of in this, going through this period of time where I don't know if I ever want to go back to working in a corporate environment, especially if corporations are only interested in like AI workflows. You know, I'm a creative person. I love to program. I love to problem solve. And if if people are only expected to kind of like babysit an AI to basically write the code and not come up with original concepts, then it just doesn't seem interesting. I also think that the kind of I feel like the recruiting aspect of at least like software development and game development, I feel like recruiting has sounds like it's gotten really bad. Although I've always believed word of mouth is the way to go. So if I'm giving any advice to anybody out there, I would say just talk to people you know to get your foot in the door someplace. While I talk, I might as well try to play my game and see how far I can get. Let's see, I've been talking for about 7 minutes. I can get through a game. Hopefully, I won't play terribly, but also I'll be able to think clearly and continue talking about cool stuff. So now that I'm playing the game, I just realized it's harder for me to show you what I've been working on, the physical stuff. But I do have, I am using a Atari style controller today as I'm playing Brick Game. So during my time of almost like semi-retirement, this is the controller, by the way. Wah! During my time of what I might want to consider almost like semi-retirement, I really just wanted to get into deeply creative projects, and I think I've talked about this a few times, but I like I like talking about it, and it provides some background for people who haven't heard me talk. But early this year, I had bought, actually, this goes back about a year or a couple years ago. I went to a Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, and someone was showing off this thing called a Game Tank. It was a brand new 8-bit homebrew console, and I spoke to Nick for like what's probably a long time. You know, I talked his ear off, and after that I went back later, and Clyde was there. Clyde was actually the guy that invented the Game Tank, and I just kind of walked up and I was like, hey, I want to buy it. And then I bought it. I bought the Game Tank, and I bought a couple games, and it's a really beautiful console. It's quite for a modern gamer, it's quite jarring to to go down to 128 by 128 pixels. But then once I got into development, there was something really beautiful about how limiting the resolution is, and just like what it's capable of. I don't even think I'm making sense. I think what I mean to say is I was so blown away by the type of bare metal programming control that I had. You know, the ability to kind of like control the sprites and the location of the sprites, the drawing of the sprites, down to like just since it's bare metal programming, you know, you have total responsibility over your frame rate. So you know, if you do the math, you know exactly how much computation is being done. And you know, you had to make choices, and one of the choices I made was I wanted to, as much as possible, maintain 60 frames per second. So I was very meticulous about, you know, the collision code on the bricks and how much level of animation I was going to allow. You know, there's like something like 6 or something frames of animation when each of the bricks dissolves, and I just wanted to add that little juice, you know, and I had to optimize a lot to allow for multiple bricks to be dissolving at the same time. And then there's the just a lot of optimization in terms of like collisions. I really was quite stuck on the idea of having multiple balls. So that's why I have this secondary ball that shows up once in a while. If you hit there's like a randomly selected brick that releases the second ball. So the sort of like the one area where I've allowed the frame rate to lag is when the ball goes drilling sideways through a lot of bricks. It does occasionally bring down the frame rate, and I just made it a choice that there was something almost maybe I think of it as a way to peek under the hood, that you can sort of see quite clearly where the limit is, that like you feel the power you feel the strain of the CPU. Anyway, sorry. It is in its own way a little bit of almost like adding juice to the game by having it slow down. You know, it's not quite deliberate, but it has an effect, you know. But anyway, sorry, that it's hard to put into words, but I do like the occasional slowdown when the ball's drilling through so much stuff that the computer slows down. One of the coolest things about this game is it's so hard to get to these higher levels, is the fact that once you get to like level 10, you have like 1 pixel bricks. So the procedural layout gets so condensed you don't see individual bricks anymore. And by then the game is like ridiculous. Like the ball's moving really fast, and the the paddle becomes really tiny. Um, yeah, it's what I realized is I need to start adding in little cheats to my game so that people can get to the higher levels, whether it's for practice or just because it's more fun. Yeah, when I was developing this game, I pictured it as a game that just plays in the arcade and has no options. If I built a physical console, or not console, but arcade cabinet, I would want the player to put in a quarter and have like only one choice. Just the paddle controller, one player. It would always start at level 1. Everyone starts at the same baseline. And then I imagined it would be like a competitive game. And like people would line up. I know, it's just such a stupid fantasy. but but like it was a fun trip into like an alternate universe, like 1983 or something. I'm not sure what year it would have been, but just like in the back of a pizzeria, the tiny little, because I picture it'd be kind of a small console off to the side, hidden away from the it's like if you couldn't get to the asteroids machine or the or Space Invaders or whatever, then you'd be like, what's this little box in the corner? And it says brick game, but and then you'd find like the one or two people who discovered it and like compete for time. You got to line your quarters up on the tabletop. But man, I'm really going off on my weird fantasy. But that's what it was like in the 80s. Go get a slice of pizza. Go to the bowling alley. And while your friends are finishing up a bowling session and you're bored, you go and you check out the arcade machines. So it's a really weird time for me. I have a feeling that the job market will change, maybe next year in 2027. But right now everyone's just a mess. And I think what bothers me is even like HR, it seems to be automated or controlled by an AI. And I'm not really saying this from experience. I just hear people talking about stuff and I'm just like, that's not for me. But I don't know, I'm just a snob, I guess. But in the meantime, I wrote a game in C and a tiny bit of assembly, and I got to know that experience. I got to know what it's like to release a game on Steam, which was just a side benefit of the larger big picture, which was I came up with a way to play to build and then play old school paddle style games on my Mac or on my PC, and then it's turned into this weird obsession of like reintroducing the world to paddle controllers, but part of me hopes that um, I can keep making more games, but also, every time I say this or think about it, it seems less and less realistic, which is like turn this into a business somehow, like, especially because I pretty much only want to work on open source projects if it's my own work. I don't understand. No, it's not that. It's not that I don't understand. I have this weird kind of idealist way of thinking. I used to think of it as the hacker ethic, which was that information should be free. And, another thing that I like to say is it's not rocket science that I was able to make a paddle controller. I literally soldered 2 components to a microcontroller and wrote like 100 lines of code, And so it's like, you can't patent that. Like, that's ridiculous. And you're not gonna, you don't keep that secret. You share it with all the other retro gaming nerds, and then you all build paddles. And then, I want to have a bunch of people. I want to have a bunch of game developers, start developing games using this type of controller. And it might even just evolve into just a general idea of how many analog controllers can you make using basically the same technology we've had for decades, which is what I mean by that is every analog joystick you have, thumbstick you have on your gamepad today is the same thing. It's just that it's not used in this way. We're not taking advantage of it in the way that gives you all the control that makes games more fun. Although, actually a better way to put it is, to some degree, sim racing wheels are the evolution of the paddle controller. But it's also big money, big business. I've always wanted a simulation rig, but I don't want to spend any money. I'm that kind of person. I'm the cheap person. so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna start working pretty soon on a little handheld driving controller that's a little bit better than the weird 3D printed thing that you stick on your gamepad. Yeah. Anyway, I've been talking for 20 something minutes, and I don't know. I guess I had a lot. I have a lot of stuff to get off my chest. It seems. And I think I just need to stop talking about it and just start getting my designs out there. Hopefully find other people to talk to about making cool custom DIY controllers to get the most out of our home video games. But I don't know. I really feel like I've babbled on quite a lot. But I hope I don't know. I hope I've said something of interest to somebody out there. I'll try to plan. Yeah, I kind of didn't plan this out very well today, so maybe I feel like I'm backpedaling, trying to backpedal my way out of into saying something interesting. But alas, I'm just stumbling over myself. So That's my cue to say goodbye. So talk to you later.